Recently, the Roblox YouTuber Parlo has been spreading false and slanderous allegations in an attempt to discredit me and my associates. So in today's video, I will be debunking all of these false allegations and telling you the truth you need to know. But before that, really quick, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and join my Discord server, as that will greatly help me get the truth out there despite Parlo trying to lie about me. Parlo's first and main allegation against the creator of the original document 77 is that he is a doxer. This claim originates from the group chat where I, 77 Xen, were having a conversation about Parlo's information being very public. To the point you could just look up his name and you would find almost all of his personal information. Parlo would take this out of context, saying this in his video.
And even defended another doxer who I will be color coding as Red. Mr. Red was the original person who made the false document on me, which was completely debunked, and Mr. Red was seen in a group chat with Xero and Zen on Discord, where they made comments about making false and fictitious police reports to my house, essentially wasting police's time. Red also stated he wanted to find my mother's name. What the f did my mother even do to be involved in this? And even worse, he wanted to find my phone number, and was even encouraging Zen to make prank calls to me, to of course intimidate me and pile on stress. Mr. Red was seen telling these users on how to exactly find my personal information, and even stated my full legal name to them so that they could access it on Spin. Mr. Red was actively supplying in this group chat with methods on how to get my personal information, and when I confronted Novok about this, he defended it and claimed it was debunked when there's literally nothing to debunk to begin with.
Parlo claims that 77 is a quote-unquote doxer. He claims that 77 was planning to make false or fictitious police reports to Parlo's house. Parlo also claims he encouraged Zen to make prank calls to Parlo's number. He also claims that 77 was telling me and Zen how to find Parlo's address, and also telling us his full legal name, claiming that 77 was actively supplying with methods on how to get his personal information. However, what I found funny is the fact that Parlo purposefully omits the actual context of that conversation. You see, I, 77, and Zen were having a conversation about Parlo's history of being doxxed, and having his information be very publicly accessible. 77 did not quote-unquote supply any information on how to find Parlo's information, because I and Zen were fully aware on how and where to find Parlo's information. As I myself pointed out, I can just look up Parlo's name and find all of his information. Parlo attempts to rewrite the context of the situation in order to discredit 77. However, he omits the actual context. 77 pulling up public information that can be found on websites like Twitter, Soyjack Wiki, and Spin cannot legally or morally count as quote-unquote doxing, which is proven by cybersecurity experts as seen here. This is a malicious lie Parlo made in order to discredit 77. But moving on to the claim of us being quote-unquote malicious for joking about prank calling him, this claim is overtly slanderous. Parlo claims because we made a very obvious joke about prank calling, we are quote-unquote malicious or quote-unquote doxers. However, this claim is obviously slanderous. This was an obvious joke made by user 77 Xen and myself. I also find it funny given how Parlo himself has said things way worse than this and attempted to write them off as jokes. A good example would be this clip.
He's tried to use my admin members who said let's loop Q as a joke, and he knew that was a joke, and then tried to use it against me.
Parlo pretty much debunked his own point here. He himself acknowledges you can't use jokes against someone, but proceeds to use jokes against us, and crops it to make it look malicious, knowing it was an obvious joke. However, it's still important to note that after this joke was made, we all three agreed not to dox or prank call Parlo, as we thought it was morally wrong. The fact that he omits the full context when he had the full group chat archives with every message shown in the group chat is incredibly insane, and points out the fact that Parlo himself knows no one in this group is a doxer, and simply wants to paint us as malicious. I also find this argument odd due to the fact that Parlo himself worked with two in order to dox multiple people, being XD Gamer and Side-Iced. It just seems very hypocritical of Parlo. But moving on to the next claim, and arguably the most important one, that one of his slander campaign victims named Bucketeer had posted C in his video.
Novok's horrible behavior ends with his recent video on me, you'd be mistaken. Novok is currently also on record actively defending a user named Bucketeer, who in 2023 had openly posted a video of being by an older man while they were only wearing in a Discord group chat with numerous inside of it. The veracity of this claim has also been attested by numerous individuals.
The first thing I must point out is that the video is not C. The video was of a gym trainer showcasing his students' muscles, prominently the fact they all had abs. Now, aside from the fact that Bucketeer himself already debunked these allegations in this video, I will still show you what Parlo claims to be C. Now, obviously, this video is not C. The only way for something to legally classify as C, it would have to be 1, sexual content, or 2, sexually abusive content. Now, while I won't argue this video is weird, it is not sex. And if you think it is, well, there is something very wrong with you. Parlo openly lies about the contents of this video, saying that the are being in underwear. However, this is completely untrue. All of Parlo's testimonies are from his close friends, who of course don't mind openly lying about a literal child. So let's clear this up. Bucketeer did not post these. Children were not being sexually exploited and nothing was even happening. This was an attempt at a blatant lie and complete slandering from Parlo. Bucketeer has no quote-unquote victims, and if anyone saw that content and saw it as then they need to be looked into. Now, before I go any further in this video, I must point out that in Parlo's video, he makes a lot of claims about Nivolk. I want to point out that Nivolk has responded to these allegations and debunked them all, as well as taken accountability for the things he did wrong. I suggest you watch that video after you watch this one. Now, I know there is another allegation of Bucketeer running a server that allowed to post MSV to each other. However, here is Bucketeer's direct response to that claim.
Yeah, and then he's also saying that I owned a server when I was 14 and 13 that allowed me and my friends to send like thug shaker gifts, and it's kind of stupid. Like, yeah, I guess I'm bad and evil for it. I'm sorry. I take accountability for that.
And I must point out the fact that Bucket made this server when he was 13 to 14. The server's intent was not to post in it was a server ran with a bunch of immature children who posted unfunny gifs. Parlo attempting to rewrite this as sexual or malicious is incredibly bad faith and disingenuous. However, moving on to the next claim that Parlo brings up in a malicious attempt to discredit me, Parlo attempts to say I quote-unquote defend doxers and posters. Now, he was referencing me quote-unquote defending the Roblox YouTuber pay mentories, aka Brew. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that Brew did not post C. Parlo accuses Brew of posting C with no actual evidence that it even was, and simply says that Brew posted C in a group chat because Parlo thinks quote-unquote the person's looked young. Now, aside from the fact that he has zero actual proof that it even was C, aside from his friends lying for him, Pay Mentory / Brew has already debunked these allegations in this video. One thing I want to point out is that Brew did not post C, but what they did was still very wrong, and I do think posting in a GC is incredibly weird. However, they were 12 years old, and all signs point to Brew being group. Now, of course, that doesn't change what they did. I do think it was wrong, but Parlo lies about me quote-unquote defending Brew, when I never once publicly or privately defended them. The only reason they were unbanned in my server is because they debunked the allegations and then went on stage to testify and give the full story. And after that, I took a poll and my entire server wanted her unbanned. However, she was still banned, and I also blocked Brew because I do not associate with her. Once again, this doesn't excuse their actions, but it does debunk the claims of me quote-unquote defending them. I think what Brew did was wrong, but you cannot hold a 12-year-old to the standards of an adult. I highly suggest you check out Brew's video once this video ends, as it once again proves that Parlo openly lied about them. But just to reaffirm this, me and Brew are not associate, and what Brew did was still incredibly disgusting and wrong. Even if she didn't post C, I still think a lot of the things she did and said are disgusting. The only reason I am bringing up Brew is because I do not believe Parlo should be able to lie about a child having C and get away with it, but it does not excuse the other horrible actions he's committed. But I'll make it clear one more time, I do not associate with Brew, and if Parlo attempts to use this against me, it would be an obvious slander attempt and lie. Now, moving on to the next claim that Parlo made. Parlo claims that Me77 and Xen quote-unquote mismanaged C archives. This allegation mainly comes from Mugen, one of Parlo's closest associates. These allegations come from a video titled LolCow vs LolCow. Now, the first thing I must point out is that this video was deleted due to the fact that Mugen provided no actual evidence there was any C in the GC. They only referenced the fact that the UTTP send a lot of C to most GCs they enter. However, Mugen himself admits that the images / videos in this GC were not archived. This means even if there was any C in this GC, there wouldn't be any way to actually know. Therefore, he is simply accusing us of mismanaging C archives with no actual proof there was any C at all. However, after I pointed this out in a comment, Mugen responds stating that the only evidence he had is the fact that quote-unquote your friend said the archives have C. Now, aside from the fact that the archives have no media or images, so even if my friend said that, there would be no actual proof if they're actually being C. After this comment, I went to check the archives once again, and I couldn't even open the archives, which means Mugen never even checked the archives, as it was a broken file. So he just took the words of some random person who was barely involved in the investigation and made a video with zero proof and accused us of mismanaging C. This is incredibly stupid and downright malicious. I'm just going to make something else clear, which would make this all obviously a slander campaign. First of all, the GC, which Zen had sent Mugen an archive of, was the GC where Parlo had confronted FPS and the UTTP, which previously stated would mean that Parlo would also have CSAM content, since he was in the GC and used said GC screenshots in his video, which would mean that if there was CSAM, he would be in a GC with CSAM and he would have archived it, which is the same thing he's accusing us of. Pretty hypocritical, is it not? But I also want to talk about some other things he said in his comments, such as him stating despite knowing Defender milled people into self, Parlo used him to dox at least one of my being Potamer. Now obviously I shouldn't have to point out how insane of a statement that is. Parlo claims to not have been aware of any of Defender's actions, but Mugen, one of Parlo's closest associates, claims that Parlo was fully aware of what Defender had done, and still used Defender to dox Potamer, which directly led to Potamer getting away scot-free due to the fact that he was doxed and making Potamer seem like a victim, and leading to his case being dismissed. Now obviously Potamer is not innocent, but I still feel the need to point that out. But moving on to the next statement in this comment, Mugen would say that he quote-unquote failed to pry Parlo away from Nathrix years ago, and that he somewhat pities him, but pity has its limits. Now this comment reveals insane information. This comment leads you to believe that Parlo was 100% aware of what Natty Forsyth had done, and only chose to separate after he could no longer get away with supporting Natty Forsyth publicly. Now this comment and more of Parlo's disgusting actions will be highlighted in an upcoming video and second mega document that will detail even more of Parlo's actions. But aside from that, this video was created to dismiss the false allegations Parlo has spread about me and my associates. It's genuinely disgusting to see that Parlo can get away with all of these lies and slander simply because he has a big platform. I suggest you share this video around and download it in case it gets taken down by Parlo. Shout out to my channel members Bogdan and Rivalry, and I'll see you all in the next one.